Good day, everyone. I am Kanajoy Pedrosa Kabilbigan, your reporter for today. In English 113, Teaching and Assessment of Grammar. I will tackle the Chapter 5, How to Teach Grammar through Text. My topic is all about text and context. So first, we need to know what grammar is, text, and context. So, as what I have learned from previous reporters, grammar is the study of what are forms are possible. Grammar is a process for making a speaker's, writer's meaning clear when contextual information is lacking. In short, grammar is the whole system and structure of a language or the languages in general, where it is consists of syntax and morphology, phonology, and semantic. So here are the objectives. First, to define what is a text. Second, to discuss the text in context. And third, to determine the importance of text and context in everyday communication. So what is a text? So text is a book or other written or printed work regarded in terms of its content rather than its physical form. It is anything that conveys a set of meanings to the person who examines it. And what is a context? Context is a situation that forms the setting of an event, statement, or idea, and in terms of which it can be fully understood and assessed. We are all familiar with the experience of being asked the meaning of a context word and having to reply, but what's the context? The very word can mean different things in different contexts, as these examples show. What does this word mean? Can I have a word with you? I give you my word. Word has it that they are getting married. If you want help, just say the word. How should I word this letter? So, in these phrases, word can mean different things in different contexts. In the first phrase, what does this word mean? It means the person is asking for a definition or a meaning of a word. The second phrase, can I have a word with you? In this phrase, I think a person is asking a favor a favor to the other person. The third is, I give you my word. It means someone is promising a word for him or her. Fourth, word has it that they are getting married. It means the word here is like it will have an event and a word. Fifth, if you want help, just say the word. It means like a person is not promising. I think it's like if someone needs help from him or her, they just ask a word for him. And lastly, how should I word this letter? It means like a person is asking or doubting if what is going to be put in his letter. So language is context sensitive. This means that in the absence of context, it is very difficult to recover the intended meaning of a single word or phrase, right? This is true of words taken out of the context of sentences. It is also true of sentences taken out of the context of text. The following sentences are almost meaningless out of context. The first one, the ones that don't seem to think so. Second, it's a drink. So, as what I have read, can you explain or can you tell me the definition or the meaning of that phrase? I think it's not because the phrase is not specific or not in a context. It means like there is no specific idea on that phrase, right? So here are the contexts from which these sentences were taken. First, it is important that a gin comes from London. The ones that don't seem to think so, because though they all have London Dry Gin on their labels, only one premium gin is actually distilled in London, the city of great gin making. The second phrase is taken here. Are you going to that Hatter's party? I said that I didn't know anything about it. It's for that boring woman who writes picture books about Nash terraces. Every tweet in London will be there. So, are you going? It's a drink, Muspratt said, meaning yes. So, the meaning of a sentence number one depends on references to the sentence immediately preceding it. The meaning of it's a drink in the second example depends on our expectations that what people say is relevant to what has been just said, right? In this case, the question, are you going, requires a relevant answer, which is likely to be either yes or no. It is more likely that it's a drink means yes rather than no, but notice that the author feels the need to make this interpretation explicit. As the contextualized words and the contextualized sentences lose their meaning, so to do the contextualized text. That is, texts diverse from their context may become difficult to interpret. Here are the three short texts. Each is complete in a sense that they are not extracts from larger text on which they might depend for sense, unlike the it's a drink example above. Nevertheless, in the absence of context, they are either ambiguous or unintelligible. First, port does not exist. Second, only in Berkshire can Stark Leeds Yorks. Third, to wee pig from big pig, grunt grunt. So in number one is an instruction my computer gave me when I was trying to install a new printer. Port does not exist. The number two is the response to a letter to the notes and queries section of the Guardian newspaper. The original query was "Do dogs bark?" with regional accents. The third text also comes from the Guardian. It is a St. Valentine's Day message printed on February 14th. In order to become fully intelligible, all three texts require some knowledge of where and even when the text was originally placed. We need to distinguish, therefore, between the context of the surrounding text, as in the Paul Theros extract, and the context of the surrounding situation. There are three kinds of context. The first kind of context is sometimes called the cotext. The cotext is the rest of the text that surrounds and provides meaning to the individual language items in the text. The second kind of context is called the context of situation. Factors in the context of situation that are important to consider when interpreting the meaning of a language item are the roles and relationships of the speakers and the mode of communication. Is it a public notice, a letter, a recorded message, etc.? Finally, Notice that the third text, the St. Valentine's Day greeting, requires some understanding of the culture in which on a certain day of the year newspapers print messages of love from people pretending to be animals. This kind of context is called the context of culture. Lack of familiarity with features of the culture can seriously inhibit understanding. One more point needs to be made before we look at the implications of these factors on the teaching of grammar. Although language has traditionally been analyzed and taught at the level of sentence, real language use seldom consists of sentences in isolation, but of groups of sentences, or in the case of spoken language, groups of that form coherent text. The term text will be used from now on to refer to both written and spoken English. Texts take many forms: postcards, novels, sermons, football commentaries, street signs, jokes, and air safety instructions are just a few. In real life, we generally experience text in their entirety and in their contexts of use. That is to say, we experience the whole joke, and we usually experience it in a situation where joking is appropriate. It is a feature of classrooms, however, the language becomes detached from both its context and its context of situation. But, as we have seen above, once you start breaking texts up and relocating them, it becomes increasingly difficult to make sense of them, right? The problem is that, just as it is easier to examine a fish out of water than in its natural habitat, so in order to look at grammar, it is often easier to use examples taken out of the context. This is particularly the case with beginner or elementary learners, for whom its natural context might be difficult to understand. But, as we have seen, taking words, sentences, and text out of context threatens their intelligibility. So, taking individual grammar structures out of context is equally perilous. You might think you know what "he's playing tennis" means. That is, B is doing it now, as I speak, but only one of the following examples is consistent with that interpretation. So the first, where's Tony? He's playing tennis. Second, he never wears his glasses when he's playing tennis. Third, tomorrow morning he'll be in the office, but in the afternoon he's playing tennis. Fourth, he's playing tennis a lot these days. Do you think he's lost his job? Fifth, there's this friend of mine, Tony. He's playing tennis. One day, suddenly he gets this shooting pain in his chest. As you can see, "he's playing tennis" is a phrase where they put it on different contexts, but only one is consistent on them. What's more, that the contextualizing of grammar often results in practice exercises that are of doubtful value. For example, choose the correct form of the verb. Letter A, do you work? Or, are you working every weekend? Letter B, cigarette? No thanks, I'm not smoking. Or, I don't smoke. Letter C, what do you eat? Or, are you eating cake? Number 2, which of these sentences are grammatically correct? Letter A, I'm planning to go to India for my holidays. Letter B, the phone's ringing. I'm going to get it. Letter C. They will have a party next week. Letter D. I'm tired. I think I'm going to bed. So the point here is that none of these examples has a clear right answer and a clear wrong one. They are well-formed sentences. That is, they are grammatically accurate, even though we recognize some choices as being more likely than others. But it is possible to imagine a context where, for example, cigarette? No thanks, I'm not smoking, is perfectly appropriate. So questions of correctness are often unresolvable in the presence of context, and a lot of classroom time can be wasted arguing the toes over disembodied sentences. As someone said, the confusions that occupy us arise when language is like an engine idling, not when it is doing work. A text-based approach involves looking at language when it is doing work. Therefore, I conclude that text and context are very important in our daily living, where text makes the idea of the context perfectly appropriate. So, this is all my report, and I hope you learned something about my topic. Thank you and stay safe, everyone. God bless.